If I was using LiPo batteries and they were nice and flat, I could probably get away with putting them across here. However, because I'm using these Canon camcorder batteries, I find them very good ones, space is a little bit more at a premium. So I'm going to have to open these up and relocate them exactly as I did in the previous video. The idea is that I'm going to have one cell down here, one cell across here, and then one across on that sort of position and one across here. That means of course that I can fit 4 cells. There's going to be 2 of these packs, which is going to measure 4 amps. I won't know till I fully test, but I'll probably get around about 3 hours worth of playtime on the system, which would be perfectly adequate. So now we've worked this out, I'm going to open up these batteries. I've shown how to do this on a previous video, but this is all part of the work log, so I'm going to do it again in a little bit more detail. These are the batteries that I used for the portables. On the side you've got the positive and the negative terminals. That means that on this side here is the battery protection circuit. So we need to avoid damaging this particular area. What we need to do first of all is to break this part of the plastic so that we can lift up these 2 tabs. So use a heavy pair of pliers, break in there, twist it apart like this. Do the same for the other side. You can be reasonably brutal with this, because what we need to do is to get a screwdriver under the tab so that we can lift it out as such. Do the same on the other side. Just lift that tab up. Okay, next thing we need to do is to put a screwdriver in along this line so that when we put one in, give it a twist, you can hear a crack. That crack is not the battery. On top of the batteries, holding it in place, is some double-sided sticky tape. And that is in effect what you're hearing. So you can put your screwdriver towards the top, being reasonably careful in order to lift the top casing off for access to the batteries themselves. If you do a little bit of damage to the top pieces here, not a problem, as long as you're not going to actually damage the batteries themselves. Next job is to pry the cells from the bottom. A little bit of teasing is required, and there we are. And this is why we've released these tabs. It takes the pressure away from the board, so that now you can lift it off. This gives us access to the protection circuit, which is here, and of course the cells themselves. What we're then going to do is to make sure that all this is wired in the same configuration as it is on the batteries, and then join a couple of these battery packs together so that we can double the amperage. One of the things when you're making one-off portables is that you do encounter things that you haven't quite expected or haven't quite been able to plan for. In this circumstance I've had to change the actual speakers. The ones that come with the PlayStation 1 screen, which are also Minar speakers, are about 11.5mm tall. Putting the batteries on top of this, which I have to do, would increase the height of the N64 motherboard to over the lip of the case, which will make it very difficult indeed to close the case down. So what I've had to do is use these. These are 40mm, so they're very good size, but they're only 5mm tall, so that extra 6mm will make all the difference. When we left the battery previously, it was in this type of state. Because I'm going to put one across here and one along here, what I've done is to snip this particular connection here, which then will free the batteries. I'm going to wire these up properly of course and hot the glue in place, but this is just to give an idea of how they're going to lay. Nicely inside the case, and there's also going to be plenty of space on the side in order to put these additional plugs, like the headphone. When we're wiring the batteries together, what we're going to do is to connect the positive from one side to the positive to the other battery side, and the negative to the negative. What that does is to double the amperage but keep the same voltage. The positive and the negative will be connected into this multi-port, which will then enable us through the recharge jack to recharge the batteries internally. Okay, so both sets of batteries have now been installed in the system. Ignore the surplus wires. This is to the Z, and I've also done it with the speakers just to make it a lot easier to get to the wires when I need to. These battery cells incidentally come in a variety of colours. There's no particular logic to them. I've also seen them in red and in orange as well. Anyway, the protection circuits for the two sets are here. The batteries have been connected in exactly the same way as they were originally. So then all I've done is to connect the negative to the other negative, the positive to the positive. The positive is then connected to the main on-off for the system. The other side, of course, will be the live wire once the button is pressed to turn the system on. And it's also been connected to the multi-port for recharging for the batteries. On the negative side, we'll just tap off here for the main system, but that's also been wired to the multi-port, in this case the outside, which of course is for the grounding. If we lift the system up for a moment, you'll see the multi-port installed in place. Now what we've done with the recharge unit is just to connect a wire straight to each of the two pins, and then connect that to the end of the male plug. This male plug is exactly the same as this one, but I can therefore demonstrate that the batteries are working and live. Just by putting the multimeter across, connecting the outer, which is ground, and the middle, which is live, and as you see we have 7.5 volts. Batteries are actually in need of recharge, so I shall crack on with that, but at least it shows that everything is working okay. When we were talking earlier about connecting to the negative and to the positive of the battery protection circuit, what we're actually doing here is to connect to these two pins which we lifted off earlier. This one here being the positive with the plus, and the negative of course with the minus. When you're cutting the wires, the connections, soldering etc. to the battery protection circuit, you may well find if you put your multimeter across the two parts that you get a zero value. It's not because you've actually damaged the system, it's just that the battery protection circuit has cut itself off. Though all you need to do to get it back to work again is just to put it onto recharge for at least about 30 seconds, and then you should find that the protection circuit has reset itself and you get your voltage back again. Just a little tip.